Of course, now I would turn to Mamdouh, Habashi. Maybe, of course, you could also give us a very detailed description of the situation in Egypt. But what I would like to hear, and then to move more to the meaning of the whole, let's call it so, Arab Spring, is what you mentioned when we spoke today. That, for example, next month, people from Syria, from Yemen, from all Arab countries are gathering in Egypt because you're founding the Socialist Party in Egypt. So my question is, and you said that this is a possibility for the Arab world to make more unity and to unite and to fight against global capitalism, of course. In history, and a few days ago, we had a roundtable on the non-alignment movement, and I would ask you, do you see, maybe this is also a question for Samir and for all of us, a possibility of the Arab Spring to turn into a sort of what Samir Amin calls delinking, and is it really happening, this sort of unification of the Arab world? Because all of these countries, as we always have to say, are pretty different and situations are different, but on the other hand, Egypt is still an inspiration for a lot of them.
You have given me a question in 10 minutes and asking me to answer.
Samir took also 5 minutes, so.
Thank you, Srećko. Thank to all of you, giving me this possibility to communicate with you. And I would be delighted answering questions after these 5 minutes in which I'm going to answer. I don't know what. Anyway. Nowadays, just to get the last sentence of Srećko, the Arabs of the Arab Spring, what he called us, they are not talking today about delinking, but they are talking again about the Arab unity, which was the state slogan under Nasser regime, but on a new base. It is not going to be the Arab unity of the Arab regimes, like at that time, but the Arab unity of the peoples of the Arab world, which is something completely different. Anyway, these discourses are now awakening, and we will be following that among the Arab left, which we're going to gather next month in Egypt. I would like to tell you something else about the uprising in Egypt, in order not to call it revolution yet. I left the class analysis to Samir, and he does it always better. But anyway, the main issue of this uprising was that was a huge movement without a head, because the objective conditions were fulfilled years ago, but not the subjective conditions. And now we are making this. We are trying to follow up, to rebuild the organization needed. So it was easy for these muscles of the uprising, the young people, to organize themselves in the cyberspace. It was easy to organize themselves on what they do not want, what they are against. But after winning the first battle of this long wave, as Amin said, that is the lifting of Mubarak, the dictator, they started to recognize the problem we have, that they need a hardware organization and not a software organization. And that is exactly what is happening today and since last February. Quite a number of new parties have been founded, and not only parties and federations and unions and committees and all kinds of organizations in the society, which was not possible before, independent and especially among the youth, among the young people who are really the spirit of the movement, as you have noticed. No? Today, we have mainly 5 political blocs in Egypt. And these 5 are classified according to their ideology, and under every bloc you have even its varieties. So, the main bloc is the old regime, the regime of Mubarak, which is still in power and still in the office, just shaped by the revolution, by the uprising, but it is not out of the arena. It's still in power and resisting severely. The second, I would say, the Islamists. And the Islamist is a complex. I'm going to talk about later, perhaps, but not right now because I have only 3 minutes. And then we have the third block is the nationalists, which who call themselves also Nasrists. No? And then we have the liberal conservatives with their big spectrum. And last but not least, the left. So, among these 5 ideological blocks, you can understand the policies of making coalitions. So that means we succeeded 2 weeks ago in founding the first front among the left parties, among only the left parties, and it was a real historical success, although it started very small by 5 left parties together. And parallelly, we succeeded also in founding the first, how do you call it, National Assembly. Now it's not finished yet, but we had already a preparation time of about 2 months, and 12 days ago, we had the big conference of 2,500 representatives of all the civil powers, the civil political powers. That means excluding only the Islamists and the representatives of the old regime. And all the others together supporting the revolution, insisting to continue what has begun with the revolution, has formed this National Assembly, which will consist of 150 persons representing all these and trying to force the demands of the revolution with some kind of consensus between all of them. So it is much larger than only the left. That means it contains also the conservatives and the liberals and the nationalists, parts of them. Everybody who is fighting together now with us for the civil state. Civil state means here non-military and non-religious, because, as Samir has mentioned very roughly, the Muslim brothers could deceive, or have been deceiving, big parts of even the left, not only the liberals, in the Egyptian society for decades, trying to give themselves as if they were an opposition, because opposing the Mubarak regime was giving them power, because everybody was opposing the Mubarak regime. So they played the role of an opposition to gain people. But now, after this uprising, the polarization within the society has become more clear, especially among the left, but not only among the left. So we have now a coalition between the old Mubarak regime in the office still, and the military council and the Islamists together. And this coalition is supported by the United States directly, And don't believe that they are not intervening. They have intervened from the second day of the movement, from the day January 26, when they declared that they are supporting the Mubarak regime because this regime is the garant of the stability, and Mubarak is a very important ally. So, that's just to explain to you the task of this National Assembly, which will consist of 150 persons. I am a member of it. Anyway, something to say in the last minute about the army, which is a main player in the political equation. The image of the army and the reputation of the Egyptian army among the Egyptians is still very positive, because not all of them could follow the change that happened to the army during the last 30 years, or almost 30 years, because the Egyptian army is known as an anti-colonial army. All the battles that have been fought by this army were anti-colonial, more or less. So that was the army built under Nasser. But today we have a completely new army, because exactly starting in the year 1979, by the signing the Camp David Agreement. The Camp David Agreement was signed between Sadat and Menachem Begin to settle the peace between Israel and Egypt at 97 in the White House. The third part of this agreement was Jimmy Carter. And Jimmy Carter, the United States of America, they used that to get Egypt out of the Nasserist, anti-colonial and anti-imperialist structure to be a part of the American dependent regimes. And they have done this by paying every year $1,300,000, not to the Egyptian state, but to the Egyptian army directly, which is not accountable or controllable towards any of the authorities, not the parliament, not any other authority. It is just to the free availability of Mubarak personally. So with this, they try to just wait until the old leadership of the army get in pension and vanish. And they have tried to get the new leadership according to their imagination how the army should be, and train them in the United States 1 year after another. This is one part, but the other part was to de-link the army from its own task, that's defending the country, to be a part of the economy of the country. Something which in Europe not quite known, that the Egyptian army now is controlling more than 1/3 of the Egyptian economy. The army is working, and I'm talking of the army leadership, not the normal soldiers or the young officers. They are working now in real estate business, in construction business, in agricultural business, in housing, in whatever, export, import, every kind of business. More than 1/3 of the economy is controlled by the army. And this is the way how the Americans could connect the army leadership to their geostrategic plans, because Egypt is not marginal in this area. Egypt is leading and has always led the entire area, and therefore the Americans is not ready to have, like Samir mentioned, to have a real democracy in this country. And they have therefore created, or let us call it revived, the Muslim Brotherhood, starting by the year 1972. the year 1972, I was part of a huge student movement that started in our faculty in Cairo and spread all over the country and shake the regime at that year, and ended by occupying the Tahrir Square in 72. Otherwise, we could have spent the rest of our lives in prison. We have been arrested. But from this very date, it was the start of the Islamization of the country, because until 72, we had not any kind of Islamist movements in the entire society. That was after Nasser's death, and during Nasser's time, all the Islamists and also the communists were outside of the country, were removed. So, and we had also no conservative, no liberals. The entire political landscape consists of only the left, Marxists, and the nationalists, Nasserists. And the movement was completely against Sadat and his policy. So Sadat started from this year to create or to revive the Islamic movement in Egypt and get the leaderships from Saudi Arabia and the Federal Republic of Germany, and gave them green light and started to finance them from Saudi Arabia since this day by billions of dollars, not by millions.
Maybe I would, because we could, thanks, anyway, but yeah, Slavoj already has a comment. I think now it's important not just to speak about Egypt, because we could, of course, we could speak the whole night on Egypt, and you will have an opportunity later.